There you go.
Okay, thank you. It is a pleasure to welcome everybody to our Middlesex County Library Board meeting for Tuesday, May 26, 2020. And it's good to see everybody, and it's good to have a board meeting, and it's good that we're still operating as a library. But I'd like to open up the meeting by asking for a provision of disclosure of pecuniary interest in any general nature thereof. Seeing none, then I move to the minutes of the library board meeting April 7th, 8-2 for approval. April 7th meeting. Again, any questions or comments with them first? Okay, then I move by Mary Gay and second by Ruth. For the comments, all in favor? Okay, that's everybody's hand. Thank you. First item of business here is a visioning topic, and it's early on update, and that's going to be presented by Nadine. You ready? Go ahead.
Morgan, you have my slides there. Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone. So Lindsay always invites me to do these presentations, and she says because you guys love seeing and hearing all about the kids. And so I've tried to include some cute pictures throughout. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a highlight. Bear with me today. I have my earphones on because I have a busy household. There's children in the background doing their homework, and you never know what I can expect when that's happening. Okay, so I'm just going to give a little bit of a highlight of some of the programs that we've been offering thus far. Morgan, you can move to the next slide. So I'm just going to go over the various virtual programs that we have running right now, and then just talk about some of the things that we have in store for June, July, and August. Next slide. So pictured here is a virtual program calendar that we produce. We produce a bi-weekly calendar that we share with our families either by email or through social media. In total, we've offered, so this is effective May 15th, we've offered a total of 94 virtual programs. And so I'll just go over some of the various categories of programs that we've offered and some highlights about each of those. Next slide. So the first category of programs, so this is the first category of programs that we start offering right from the hop back in March, which are story or circle time programs. In total, as of May 15th, we've offered 47 different programs. So there are a few different categories within this particular circle time program. So if you move on to the next slide. So we offer just a general circle time program. So that's all open to, I would say generally for children 2 to 6 years of age. These are pre-recorded and shared on both Facebook and YouTube 3 times a week at 11 o'clock. So pictured here is Donna Fleming, one of our facilitators, who is facilitating a circle time and like I had mentioned is uploaded onto Facebook and YouTube. Next slide. Donna has quite a following. She's certainly a fan favorite. So we get a lot of emails sent in from families of their children enjoying the circle time videos that Donna has uploaded. I'm not sure, Morgan, if you'll be able to click on that or not, but this is a video of a couple of children who are enjoying Donna's, oh, there's no link there. Okay. So these are just a couple of children who are outside on their trampoline enjoying the song called Sleepy Bunnies. And it's quite good. So I'll try to, maybe I can send the links to Morgan and you can send them on. You can have a little smile looking at these kids having fun. Next slide. As well as the general circle time videos, we offer twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. A circle time for babies. Those again are uploaded onto YouTube and social media. And again at 11 o'clock. So those are facilitated by Janice Dolliver. So that's her pictured here, as well as Allison Beauchamp. Next slide. The most recent addition to our Circle Time videos are the Bedtime Stories. So those have been going on for a few weeks now, and again are quite well enjoyed. Those are pre-recorded and shared on YouTube and Facebook Monday to Thursday at 6 o'clock. So pictured here is Alison Beauchamp in the comfort of her own home, reading a bedtime story. And this is pictured here on YouTube. Next slide. The next category of programs that we offer are our virtual experiences. So these are interactive experiences led by one of our facilitators. And there's a number of different categories. They might be more of a creative art experience, or they may be something outdoors in nature. Next, as of May 15th, putting together these slides, we had offered 24 programs in total. Next slide. So pictured here is Jenny Burns. These videos, as I mentioned, are, well, they're offered every day, Monday to Friday. We upload them onto YouTube and Facebook at 9:30. Some are indoors and some are outdoors. This is Jenny pictured here doing making salt dough. It was a Mother's Day craft. I have to say I did try this experiment at home and certainly was not as successful in creating a Mother's Day gift as Jenny was, but it certainly was fun. These are quite popular. Alongside these videos, we also have lesson plans that we upload onto our website. Next slide. Again, we won't be able to click on this link, but again, we get a number of different families who send in either pictures or videos of their children enjoying one of the virtual experiences. So pictured here is a little boy named Jordan who had just watched one of Donna's virtual experiences, which happened to be a nature walk. I would have to say that was probably one of the most fan favorites. So this is him enjoying that experience and his mom just sharing that with us. Next slide. The next category of programs we offer are our live Zoom calls. So effective May 15th, we had hosted a total of 23. These calls are an opportunity for families to connect with the early on facilitator as well as other early on families. So typically what happens are families are given an opportunity to say hello, and then they're led through a variety of different activities like I Spy or Show and Tell, as well as a number of different favorite songs that they sing along to. We also offer, so those are offered, it depends on the community. Some are offered more frequently, some are less often. But as well to sort of these general Zoom calls, we offer weekly a baby time Zoom call for mums and babes. And that's led by Janice Dolliver. So she does some activities with the moms, answers some questions, and then leads them through a topic of the week. So some examples have been sunscreen or feeding baby. Next slide. So in the beginning, when we first hosted these calls, we took some pictures with permission from the families of just the kids enjoying the experience. So you can see on the slide here, we have a number of our Strathroy families and Dorchester families certainly having a lot of fun on the Zoom call. Next slide. Here we have Ilderton, Lucan, and Thorndale. Again, lots of fun had on these calls. I have the luxury to be able to often, when I can, sit in the back end and watch, and it's certainly a lot of fun. There's a lot of smiles and enjoyment by the families. Next slide. In addition to these general Zoom calls, which are, for, like I had mentioned, for families who are used to being able to go to the drop-in programs at those different locations and be able to connect with their facilitator and other families, we offer a number of different special events. So pictured on the slide are just some of the special events that we've offered thus far. Today at 11:30, we have a teddy bear picnic. I just checked the registration before I came on the call, and if I can recall, there's 20 registered for that particular program. So that'll be an opportunity for the kids and to bring their favorite stuffy and their blanket and a little healthy lunch, and hopefully many of those families will get outside and enjoy the experience. So that'll be led by a couple of our facilitators who will then lead the kids through some songs and a book as well. Next slide. So the last thing we've been trying to offer families is just that support. There's a lot of certainty and a lot of, just the need to be able to have somebody to connect to. So our team has been there for families, responding to emails, to calls. Some families have connected one-on-one with our early on facilitators via Zoom. We as well have put together a series of 4 Ask Middlesex Early On videos. So there are just some videos that address some of the common questions that families have, or some concerns that are facing around parenting during this time of self-isolation. So that last video of that series will go up this Thursday. Next slide. So we've been collecting feedback through surveys, as well as there's a lot of comments that come in through email and on social media. So I have the team just going through the feedback on social media and through emails, collating it and then coding it, just to look for some trends in some of the feedback. So we've gone a little deeper into the evaluation as of date, but the time of writing and putting together these slides, these are some of the categories of feedback we'd received. So I'd say in general, there are about 3 overarching themes. One being just a general appreciation for the support that we offered, some great praise for the hard work and responsiveness and the creativity of the team. Next, and quite importantly, is that a lot of the opportunities that we've offered have provided the essential need for connection and the importance in helping to facilitate belonging for children, as well as the opportunities have provided children with a sense of some familiarity during this time of self-isolation. Some of the other feedback that we've noticed, because as I mentioned, we've done a little bit more digging into the feedback, is just that a lot of the opportunities have provided children the opportunity to express themselves and to engage in a very interactive learning experience. So we can say that we've helped to facilitate some additional learning at home through these different play-based learning opportunities. Next slide. So these are just some of the social media analytics in terms of the number of Facebook video views. That looks a little large. Some of that has to do with when a family shares a video. It does capture some of the, if my understanding is some of the potential reach in terms of those that might be viewing when they go to share, as well as YouTube video views. We've had over 300 participants involved in our Zoom calls. That's quite big. As well as we've had just under 600 different communications with our early on team, either by email or phone or through Facebook Messenger. So that is that in terms of our general virtual programs. The last category I want to just talk about, next slide, is our Ready, Set, Learn program. I believe on our my last presentation, I had mentioned that we had a JK readiness program that was supposed to have started in April, and it was going to be a 4-month program. We've now moved that program to virtual. So it's a 4-week virtual program intended to support children who are entering JK in the fall. When I wrote these, put together these slides, we were at 106 in terms of our registration. We're now at 157. So we are pretty impressed with that number of folks that are registered for our program. Next slide. So the program has 3 key components. One is parent support. So each week of the 4-week program, we cover a number of different topics to support school readiness. So we've put together a parent instructional video, and that's led by Allison Beauchamp, as well as a PDF guide where there's some more additional information for parents to access. All of these tools are uploaded into a members only Google Classroom. Next slide. Then we have our early on team doing a circle time video. So again, just some circle time activities and songs, and then it ends with a reading of a story. And the stories that we have chosen are stories that are available within Hoopla so that we can encourage families to go and access the book that way. Next slide. And then my most favorite part of this this program are the videos that are done by Shauna and her beautiful daughter, Charlotte. Charlotte is entering into JK in the fall. So these, oh boy, hello? Okay, I'm still there? Okay, sorry, somebody signed in on the other back end of my, into the other Zoom. So sorry, I lost my train of thought. So Shauna is and Charlotte are engaged in some children's activity. So week one, and I had the pleasure of being able to watch week one's activity last week. It is Shauna and Charlotte going through a number of letter recognition activities. So that is just intended to give some parents, the parents, some ideas of things they can do at home. Next slide. Okay, so just because we were supposed to get started in April and then again in May, and we had to work very busily in the back end to be able to make the virtual program, what we just decided to do is just give 4 weeks of countdown activities just to help warm up the brain and get ready for our June 1st program launch. So we have been giving just some ideas for families to engage in over this is the final week of the countdown. So again, just some letter and number recognition and some ideas to support creative and fine motor activities, etc. And then we encourage families to submit their classwork. So you can see on the right-hand side is just a chart that they can enter. And then in the middle is a prize. So we put together 8 prizes that we will award 1 prize per week. So when families submit their classwork, we then choose 1 lucky winner. Next slide. So as of time of writing, we were just finishing up week 1 of our countdown, but the feedback thus far has been very, very positive, that the program is providing some structure, it's giving some ideas to consider at home, and again, just some praise and appreciation to be able to move so quickly in getting the program up and running. And then pictured on your right are just some of the kids enjoying the activities at home. Next slide. And then lastly, so as I mentioned, our Ready, Set, Learn program starts, the official program starts on Monday. So we are doing some Zoom calls with families. So far we have just over 60 participants signed up for a welcome Zoom call. So we're going to do those on Monday. Every Thursday, we're hosting Zoom calls for families who just want to touch base and have some questions about the material of the week. And then what I'm most excited for is at the end of our Ready, Set, Learn program is we are having a graduation ceremony on June 27th. So we'll be mailing out some packages to those families. It'll be a little graduation hat, a graduation diploma, as well as an invitation to attend our graduation ceremony at the end. So we're busy planning for that, as well as I'm working with Shauna and our early on team and getting ready for the summer learning program. So we'll be rebranding all our existing program that we're offering now into our Camp Stream theme. And we're always just looking for opportunities to adapt and continue to meet the needs of families. So we're always sending out feedback and surveys to families to give us some more ideas in terms of how we can support them at this time. And that is it.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question on that Ready, Set, Learn. You say you've got over 150 registered. That starts June 1st. And you've got, I see the 4 weeks, so it's every day of the week there's something to do?
So what I showed on that slide is we just gave some countdown activities. So we're just countdown to the start of the official program, which starts June 1st. So then on June 1st, what will end up happening is families will, so we have a Google Classroom where they can go in and access the materials for the week. So effective June 1st, they'll go in, they'll be able to have access to that circle time video, the parent instruction video, as well as the children's activity and all of the other resources. And then every Thursday, we're hosting a Zoom call for parents to be able to touch base with the facilitator just to ask some questions in terms of the material. Our actual program was going to have the children together doing the children's activities and interacting with the facilitator and interacting with each other. Unfortunately, we aren't able to do that at this time. So I think we will just keep an eye on our families, and if there's any other Zoom calls that they want us to be able to set up for the children, then we can do that over the next month as well.
Should have read the notes on the right before I asked my question.
That's all right.
Are there any questions then at all with respect to this presentation from Nadine?
There were a couple questions in the chat box.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read these out, or?
I can see them there. So how do the numbers of people on the Zoom calls compare to the numbers that physically would participate? That's a good question. I would say our first Zoom calls at the very beginning were pretty well attended. It depended on I should do an actual comparison, but I would say, for example, Ilderton had a large number of participants join that call. Now they also have a more frequent play and learn opportunities. So that particular call, don't quote me on this, might have been 12 participants, where other calls that have smaller communities, maybe a Thorndale might have only had 5 or 6 on the call. So certainly we're not getting the same number of participants, but we did have a decent number involved. What we have noticed is the number of people attending those Zoom calls are starting to decrease. And I can see 2 reasons for that. And it's something that we can follow up with families. One, it's nice out, and it's nice to be able to get outdoors. And I don't know about you, but I do find I've spent a lot of time in front of a computer over the last 11 weeks, and I've done a lot of Zoom calls. So it could just be that families are a little bit done with that and just looking for other opportunities to get out and away from a computer in the inside.
Okay.
So it'd be good to talk about whether there's an opportunity to share Zoom programming outside our borders. Huron doing programming that our folks could call into and vice versa. This may be a good idea unless you feel that a smaller group of sessions is a requirement for success. So Bill, do you mean in terms of if Huron is offering a Zoom programming that we encourage our families to participate in that particular program?
Yeah, or vice versa. So you said Janice Dolliver did one and she had a theme, but Huron might have a different theme and it might be of greater interest. It just, rather than reinventing the wheel,
sure,
sharing that across borders might be a good thing since there are no borders with Zoom.
Sure.
And then that way it might get your numbers up too, because my question was really, is there a right size of participant level for these sessions to work? And it's probably different for each programming activity. Like some, whenever it's passive versus interactive, it might be one thing, and then you could have as many people as you want. Other times it may be better to have 10 or like, I don't know. But whenever it's a larger group, it might make sense.
Yeah, so interesting. I would actually suggest probably this, in some cases, for some families, the smaller numbers might be better. It can get quite overwhelming on those calls, and if it's overwhelming for us and me, it can be very overwhelming for children. And we've actually had some families say they don't participate because they find it too much, that they can't. The child has a hard time focusing, or their child has a hard time actually sitting still to participate in the program. So the parent has more trying to chase them and get them to sit down and watch the program. So I think it would depend on the family. In our experience, having the ability to have a smaller number to be able to see those on the screen has been a little bit better. So we may want to be able to offer it more often, as opposed to trying to encourage larger numbers on a call.
Okay.
In terms of the right number, I don't think really anybody knows that right now. I know I'm working with the City of London on collecting some feedback, and I mean, I know they're trying to figure out what's the best method of collecting feedback. I don't think really anybody has that right now. In terms of sharing, I know we try to touch base with Huron and other communities as well, just to see what they're doing. We've actually had one community, now I'm forgetting what community that is called, that has looked to us to see like what kind of programming we're offering, and is going to actually come on a couple of our calls just to see how those special events are run. In terms of child development, physical delivery is better than electronic. Absolutely. Actually, I sent an email to Lindsay a little while back. I was just doing some research on virtual programming and JK readiness. And there's actually a movement in the States to offer preschool programs virtually. And the research for that showed that it's not as effective in being able to reach those milestones by offering a virtual program, that they need that opportunity to interact. They're not getting the opportunity in these particular this type of programming to learn how to share and to get along with others, and to show empathy and all of those other pieces of social emotional development. So really at this point, if we're going to say we've been successful, is that we've given an opportunity, we're offering play-based learning opportunities to allow for them to engage in an opportunity at home that can help facilitate development in a particular area. Not necessarily social emotional development, but it could be number recognition, color recognition, things like that, as well as check to say that we've given the opportunity to connect and to see some familiar faces, to have that sense of belonging. So we'll never be able to address all of the elements of how does learning happen in child development, but we're doing what we can with the circumstances.
We're good. Any other questions then? Well, thank you again, Nadine. And I see why Lindsay has you write those reports.
What's that?
I see why Lindsay has you do those long presentations.
Yeah. Thanks.
The library service update. Lindsay, are you ready for this one?
Yes.
So go ahead.
Bring up the presentation on the screen. So it'll be just a bit of a recap on what we're already doing currently, kind of what we're working on, and then looking ahead, obviously, to what our next phase of service will look like.
Okay, so to start off, so we're continuing to try new programs and kind of make modifications on the programs as we run them that are running on Facebook and through our website. Just working at what people are interested in. So
Lindsay, hang on a second.
Sorry.
Does everybody else hear that the same way I do?
Distorted?
Yeah, it's distorted. I don't know what happened there, but something went wrong. So what are you using are you speaking through the computer?
Yes.
Oh, try that
okay?
again. Yeah.
Okay, I turned the volume off. I don't know. Maybe that helped.
Yeah, that's probably better, whatever you just did.
My air conditioning in here went on, so that might have caused some feedback or something too. Okay, yeah, let me know as I go through. I'll try and watch your faces.
I'll do this, yeah.
Okay. Keep an eye on that.
Let's keep going on the screen.
Yeah. There's a report later on in the agenda that goes through all of the virtual programming that we're currently running and the statistics, the usage. So you'll see that there. But a few of the new programs that we're launching. So we have our Mayor Story Times that we're going to be working on getting those uploaded. All the local mayors, including our warden, are recording a story time. We think we're going to run them probably on the weekends so that they don't conflict with the early on story times. And so once those are scheduled, I think we've got a few in so far, so just waiting for a few more. So we'll work on promotion and make sure that the individual mayors know so they can promote on their social media channels as well. So we have those coming up. We have our first virtual author visit coming up tomorrow. We have Shirley Ann English and Bonnie Sitter, who wrote Onion Skins and Peach Fuzz, Memories of Ontario Farmerettes. So that's running at 2 o'clock, so you can pre-register for that, and that'll be held over Zoom. We're really excited to try this out. This was a program that was scheduled to be at the Lucan branch right around this time. And so we worked with Bonnie and Shirley Ann to make, to see if they were comfortable with this new platform, and they were on board. So we're excited to give that a try. And we have a family crafting challenge going on this week. So that's a program that Shauna's running. And like I said, we've got that full report of our programs later on in the agenda. So the point that Bill made there on the chat about this level of virtual programming. So in my mind, we'll plan to continue this level of programming, obviously, until we reopen and beyond, and really just, look to scale it in terms of what we can sustain with our staffing and, tailoring it to reach those people who aren't necessarily getting out to our branches when we start to reopen, and really keeping an eye on where the needs are and where we need to focus our programming. Right now, we're doing our best to try and meet a wide range of needs and user groups. And so as we reopen, we can kind of tailor things and tweak things. But it's not like I don't think we're ever going to come to a point where we want to end virtual programming. We've crossed over that bridge, and we see the benefit of reaching people virtually. So I think that this is something that we'll want to continue at some level, from here on out. So we'll be working on what that looks like. But I'd, be interested in hearing your thoughts as well about what you'd like to see. So then in terms of other virtual engagement and support, we'll be launching our new instant message chat service over the next couple weeks. We're doing staff training this week. So that's another way that we'll be able to reach people and potentially use it with early on as well. So another way for families and caregivers to check in. And we continue to communicate with patrons by phone and email, and we're using those channels to help set up our distribution system, which is on our next slide. If you can move it ahead, Morgan. So this is the next phase of our service delivery that we've moved into with the recent announcement from the province. So libraries are able to open for curbside pickup or, distribution of materials. A lot of libraries have either already started curbside pickup or are moving to it very soon. Most are launching at the beginning of June. From where we sit, we're in a good position to start with a phase of mailing books and DVDs to people. And that's because we're already set up with a postage meter here at Library Office. That's how we get our books and materials around the county anyways. So it's really a much more cost-effective option for us right now, and it works well with our current level of staffing. So we can add this service in while continuing to maintain our other services and projects that we're working on. And it'll also help us manage our PPE supply. So items that we have currently in stock, things that we're waiting for. We're still working out some kinks in keeping our supply up. So we don't have to worry at this point if we'll go through this phase of mailing. We don't have to worry about staff interacting closely with the public at this point. We can build up our supplies and then move on to that stage later. And I think it's important to note that every library system is handling this next phase of service delivery differently, and they're really handling their PPE supply and procedures differently. So some are, supplying staff with masks and gloves and face shields and everything. Others are not requiring wearing gloves or cleaning materials. So it's really kind of inconsistent across the board. So I think we just need to establish our procedures and be comfortable with what we're doing and ensure that our staff are as safe as possible. So that's what I'm really keeping in the forefront right now. Just gonna look at the questions that have come up so far. Definitely we'll talk about cooling stations. So in terms of mailing costs, our first round of mailing is about 250 packages that are going out. And I think they're around probably $1.50 per package. So it's definitely below our typical mailing costs per month. We usually mail between $1,000, $1,200 a month. So we're keeping that dollar figure in mind as we go through this phase to kind of determine, does it make sense to move on to curbside now, or is mailing meeting the demand and also working within our budget? So we're definitely keeping an eye on where the costs are. And just a little bit more about distributing materials. So like I said, as we get a handle on demand and when we have the supplies to do so, then we'll look at moving to that curbside phase. At this point, I'm hearing from other libraries that we think we're going to be in this phase for a while, just because of the, recent spikes. And so I think we have the time to determine whether mailing is meeting the demand, and then we can figure out our curbside pickup procedures, which we're working on now. But that'll involve a bit more staff time. Curbside does involve more staff time, and there are some logistics to work out with the lower municipalities. So we're working through that as we launch our mailing. And as well, we want to think that some level of mailing may continue even when we start to reopen branches to help manage patron traffic and also to help those patrons who are safer at home. So I think working out the kinks, establishing our procedures now will set us up well for the future. Can we move to the next slide, please? So health and safety. I'm working a lot with John Elston on planning and supplies for the library, as well as planning for early on. So we've put together a business management plan that we're constantly editing and updating that kind of establishes what our procedures are for staff and how we're interacting with the public moving forward. Checklists for staff, screening that will have questions to answer before every shift, all of those sorts of procedures. Contractor screening checklist. So for our delivery person, that's a procedure that we'll go through with him. And we're also looking at other SOPs, like standard operating procedures that other library systems are putting in place. So staff will have to complete a training program and sign off before delivering services directly to the public. So that's something that we'll either look to hosting on Moodle, which is a system that we use currently, or maybe a Google Classroom, similar to what Nadine has set up. Public Services Health and Safety Association, the PSHSA, they are apparently working on a library specific module. So we'll make use of that when it comes out. That'll be a great resource that we can tap into. And then I've also registered for a virtual conference that's going to help with, it's about returning to the workplace. So that'll be helpful for library planning, as well as for the Library and County Admin Health and Safety Committee that I co-chair. And then cleaning materials is a big topic of concern for libraries. And again, everyone is doing something a little different. So right now we have some products on hand that we've ordered that we'll be able to use to clean high touch surfaces. And we're looking at what our procedures will be for materials coming in. Some libraries are going with a shorter quarantine period. So they might put their books and DVDs into bins for 3 days, bring them out and wash everything basically. Other systems are looking at a 7-day quarantine. And once everything comes out of the bin, it's safe to be put on the shelves. And, I think part of what we need to work on is what patron expectations are and communicating clearly what we're doing. So we have some sanitizing wipes that we could use for doing things like cleaning computer workstations, because that's a big concern as well, how we're going to keep that service safe. And then we have those cleaning materials, we have some masks and gloves, and as well we have the plexiglass shields that were on order for our service counters. So we're set up well. There's a few things that are missing, and we're just working on finding that that kind of those procedures that we're comfortable with and that are consistent with hopefully with what our neighbors are doing as well. So keeping an eye on what London is doing, what Huron, Elgin, Oxford, those locations are doing, so that we're all working on the same page. Go to the next slide, please. So training and development kind of overlaps with health and safety. So like I said, we'll have training and sign-off procedures for staff. And we're also looking into resources that will help support people to make that mental transition back to the workplace. So dealing with those fears and anxieties that we're all going to be feeling. And really those training needs will be ongoing. So that'll be one thing that we want to focus on to support staff as they come back into our workplaces after being in their homes for so many weeks. Next slide. And going back to materials handling, so I touched on this with health and safety. Right now, staff are taking precautions and limiting the handling of returned materials. So we weren't able to close our book drops entirely. People were still returning items, but staff are taking precautions when handling the returns that are still kind of trickling in. So we'll be establishing those new procedures when we reopen, setting up that quarantine period and establishing what equipment we need and what cleaning materials are needed. And then, like I said, a big part of this will be communicating this information to the public so that they understand what we're doing. We all have to understand that library materials are shared and that most are paper, so that makes them really difficult to sanitize completely. And so we want people to know what we're doing to be responsible, but also ensure that people are, able to make those informed decisions about whether or not they want to borrow items or not, because we can't open every page of the book and sanitize every page. So we need to just establish our procedures, be comfortable with what we're doing, and make sure that the public is aware of those. Our next slide, please. So thinking ahead to the next phase of our reopening, we have a lot to consider, obviously, when we're thinking about that. Obviously, waiting for that provincial approval when we move on to that stage. Thinking about our supply, our PPE supply, which we're hearing that may be a challenge even going into the fall. If we see another wave, another surge, we're going to continue to have to stay on top of those supply chains and make sure that our procedures really reflect what products are available and how we can use them safely. Another consideration is cleaning. So we've been in touch with the municipalities about what we need in terms of cleaning in order to be able to open safely. So we'll be working with them when we figure out our schedule of what branch reopenings will look like. Branch layouts, we need to think about what needs to change there. Thinking also about staffing, so what are our open hours and what are our closed door services and how we balance those two with our staff. And then thinking about what short-term modifications and then longer-term projects will help us operate better. Just going to the chat box here. So Ruth asked, do you have the science behind the length of time that the virus stays on paper? Is it much shorter than plastic? Yeah, it definitely is shorter than plastic. So in terms of cleaning book covers, because they're often covered in plastic and then not cleaning the pages, that's one way that that the risk can kind of be mitigated. I think that all libraries are kind of referring to what the CDC says. I think there's some belief that it's kind of like 24 hours on paper versus a longer period of time on plastic. So we're just keeping an eye on the latest science that's coming out. First, personally, the longer a quarantine period we can do, the safer I think we'll be, and the more safe our staff will feel as well. So I'm kind of surrounded by Rubbermaid bins right now, getting those ready to act as kind of quarantine bins. And I think, we'll probably start off with that 7-day quarantine period and then decrease as we know more about the virus and more about what other library systems are doing for sure. So going back to the phased reopening, so I have a bit of a chart started for our plan where I'm listing all of our services and programs, things that we have to think about, and then identifying what can happen with each level of restriction. So what can happen with contactless distribution, what can happen if we're open but limited to 5 people, 10 people, 50 people, and then no restrictions. So that's something that I'll
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
That's something that she will keep an eye on, I think is what she was going to say. All right. Morgan, do you want to text her and see what's going on there? Thanks. Looks like she lost her complete feed there. Just give us 1 second, Jim, to see.
Well, I got no place to go.
It might be here, Bill, because I lost mine too for a couple seconds.
Did you? Okay, yeah, she's dropped off, and Liz is off too. So you think you might? Yeah, you might have lost power in Strathroy. We'll give them a second to reconnect and see how that goes.
I'm back on, but even my TV went off too.
Oh,
Sorry.
there she is.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Welcome back.
Thank you. So a lot of physical considerations in our branches, and then we're thinking about our services. So what can we do still with doors closed? What can we do by appointment? Can we schedule, times when we can do printing, scanning, faxing for people, helping with employment and government information requests? We're working on some virtual school visits for a couple teachers. So doing a branch tour, and then so we expect to expand that to multiple branches. We're doing that in Strathroy right now, but looking ahead to the next school year, we won't be having classes of kids come to visit the library. So what can we do to reach out to those classrooms? We're starting to work on those, and then thinking about how can we do something similar for our maker spaces, spaces that probably won't be safe for people to use for the next number of months. How can we still bring people those experiences and help with, especially children learning? So we're doing some brainstorming about what that might look like. Next page, next slide, please. So a lot of our both short-term and long-range planning involves technology. Some of the things that we need to think about are making the shift to more self-checkouts. Right now, we only have 2 self-checkouts out around the county. Those are the way that we can cut down on those physical interactions with patrons that aren't really necessary. So we're looking at costing out some different options there. Looking at hold lockers and book vending machines. Again, maybe for areas that we're not going to be able to reach in the short term or long term, what are our options there? Different software or systems to cut down on those kind of physical interactions that don't have to happen, like picking up when someone prints from a public computer. Can that be fully self-serve? And then just keeping an eye on whether desktop computers are really the way to go, or should we be replacing our desktops with something smaller, more portable, more easier to clean? I don't think those options are quite established yet, but thinking ahead, we're keeping those things in mind. And then if we flip to the last slide, it shows a few of those technology options. So on the left, top left, you'll see the book vending machine. So that's St. Thomas Public Libraries that they've had a lot of success with. Below that is, so those would be collection items available to anyone who wanted to pick one up or check one out. Below that is a hold locker. So you would have to have placed a hold. Library staff would deliver it to the locker and you would come and pick it up when you were able to. And then on the right-hand side, bottom of the screen is kind of a typical checkout, self-checkout system. It's very similar to what we have with the computer screen and a scanner and a receipt machine. And then the top right-hand corner is a system that would also incorporate RFID tagging. And this is something that some library systems are moving to. I know Essex is working on an RFID tagging project right now. It's something that Morgan has been talking to us recently about. So with this system, each collection item has like a physical tag placed in it that is readable by a computer system. It's like an inventory control system. And so items that have that tag in them, it really removes the need for kind of a traditional checkout transaction to happen. So in that picture, you would basically take a stack of books. In this setup, you would set them on a counter that it has like RFID recognition in it, and the system would automatically check everything out. Or you could also use your phone to do the same checkout process. So again, it takes that that kind of face-to-face transaction out of the mix. And so some library systems also incorporate like a security system or a gate system into this as well, so that if someone hadn't done that self-checkout, you walk through the gate, the RFID tag would set the alarm off. So there's a few options that we're looking at. Obviously financial considerations, and so we're looking at the budget, thinking about planned projects for 2020, planned replacements, seeing what we can put on hold. So that we have some leeway to make decisions and make changes that will benefit the system. And then we also have to think about what will work for comprehensive branches, and then what could work for smaller locations. A lot of this work ties into our strategic planning, which is still on our mind. It's still a priority. That, you know, I still see us moving into that phase into the fall. So a lot of this research and prep work will set us up well for those discussions, and aligning with the county's timeline as well for their strategic planning. So for library planning, Cindy and I have talked about setting up a meeting with Jen Kirkham to have, you know, a bit of a discussion on the staff side, to do some brainstorming and see where we at, and then we'll map out that schedule for what that process will look like for you as board members. So just to wrap up, you know, we obviously have a lot of work to do as we move into these next phases of library service, but we really see that it's a major opportunity here. You know, I think each of us know that things aren't going to return to normal overnight. It's going to be a new normal, and we can see some of the shortcomings or some of the challenges that we're experiencing right now with library services. But we've also shown that we have a really strong team, and a team that's really able to adapt quickly, both library staff and early on staff. You know, what they've done to transition services online and meet people where they're at. I think that that sets us up really well for the future. So for me, it's about keeping that momentum going and really deciding where we need to be and figuring out how we get there. So that's the process that we're working through now. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? And, you know, I'd have to ask one if I had one, because I don't know how you type in and get those messages like you're getting. So I'll just stay with asking my old-fashioned way. But is there any other questions or any comments with respect to this report? If not, I want to thank you, Lindsay. One topic that Bill had mentioned on the chat previously before my chat crashed was thinking about libraries as cooling centers, and that has really come up. Yesterday, I know there were some emails out about what municipalities were doing and what our role is. So, you know, we are thinking about those needs, and we would be able to support municipalities, you know, if library staff were needed to help with those situations. But it's definitely a challenge that, you know, we're used to being open and for people having the option to come in and cool off.
It isn't our first choice, though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've had some questions from a few municipalities, and I would say that it's a long ways from our first choice. I think our first choice would be that they use community centers and arenas and other places that are easier to clean, or other facilities that are easier to clean. The library, I guess all the facilities have been cleaned, but it's just harder, I think, with so many things for people to touch and do, that I don't mind doing it. The problem I have is that I have no way to clean it after so that it can be reused again. And so I'm really nervous about this, because, you know, I can't stop people from touching books and then going and picking them up. And I could be creating a pretty big problem. Whereas if you're in a community center and arena, there's less things to touch and it's much easier to disinfect. I just don't have a strategy. So when I received the question, I said, that's great if you want to do it once and keep all the same people in there, but I don't have a strategy after that. I can't even get air to it, right? So, because it's going to be closed up after that. So it's not a great long-term strategy in my view. But our staff certainly are willing to help respond as we would in any type of emergency. But I just thought I'd raise that issue.
Right. The other thing would be with what would the volume would be able to allow in at a time. I'm concerned about somebody at the door with a counter, or how do you police that? So.
Well, we don't have large, like that's why community centers and arenas are much better because you can keep them further apart. Our libraries are actually designed to sort of funnel people into the same spot to gather. And so I can't think of one library that has big open spots like that the way a community center arena would. It's fraught with problems that we could get a lot of criticism for doing, but we're going to get criticized if we do it or don't do it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions then? Then we'll be moving on. I see no action items. I'll go through correspondence and information items, and I'll go through them one at a time. And if you've got a question with respect to any of them, or you've got any comment on them, Lindsay, just let me know. First one is system e-resource and internet usage, April 20th, 2019. That's item C1. Item C2 is accounts payable for May 15, 2020, totaling $231,287.45, and that's from March 14th to May 15th. This is the virtual programming update, April and May 2020, and that's the report on May 26th. This is a report from Shauna with respect to child and youth librarian and Amy, a technical service coordinator. This is our social media activity, April to May 2020. Report from Shauna and Amy. This is our early on update, library info, May 26th, early on update. The report from Nadine. Questions on that? Any comments on that, Nadine? This one is free Wi-Fi offer at Thames Valley students. Library info, May 26th, London Free Press Wi-Fi offer. This is our seed library, Lambton County standard. It's a library info that was from Lambton, Middlesex, with respect to the seeds offered. No question. Just no. That's it. Any questions with any of that then today? If not, then I look for a motion that item C1 library through the C7 library be received for information. Moved by Brad, seconded by Ruth. Any further comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Any inquiries? Warden, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to pop off since I have to head into London for the County Council meeting. But I just wanted to share with you, I had the opportunity to pop into one of Lindsay's department meetings a couple weeks ago. And it was great. Like, it was just great connecting with all the staff. And I certainly appreciated that opportunity. And then I just kind of wanted to take, again, in front of the board, the opportunity to say thank you to Lindsay and the staff for adapting so quickly to the situation that we find ourselves in. I think the level of programming that you're able to offer and the engagements, I mean, it's not what we'd like it to be, but it is what it is. And I think you're finding success. And you can see that through the reports that were shared through communications. And then of course, Nadine's report earlier. But I think it says a lot to the staff and the commitment to what they do to be able to pull off what you've done in such a short period of time. So I just wanted to say congratulations and thank you. And then once again, thank you for quiz night. It is like highlight in our household. And I think I shared with you before, we've broken off into teams and we figured out how to mirror it on the TV. So, we have a little bit of,
And you had a good score this week.
Yes, and I'm not kidding. There's been twice where we've actually been in first place a couple times. I'm not kidding. What
was this week's theme? I can't remember why.
This
like,
week,
was it?
Sunday was TV, but I think it was cartoons we did really well in.
Yeah, well, you wait till this week because the theme is going to be Bruce Springsteen songs.
For me.
Yeah.
My team members, though, want to know who Naren is because Naren always seems to be right up there, and they wonder how Naren can be so successful. But anyways.
That's really Alexa. That's just coming straight from the internet. That's who that is.
Well, they have their theories, but I won't share them since we're live on YouTube. But anyways, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone because it's just great. And then I'm going to pop off now because I've got to go to the city. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Morton. It was good to appreciate you commenting on that, and have a good council meeting today.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to new business. There's a list. Our next meeting is 10:30 on June 23rd, 2020. And I've got another item here that before we pass the bridle on, I believe Mary Gay had a comment with respect to the souls in the new business.
Yep.
You want to take it now, Mary Gay?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, can everybody hear me? Right,
Sure.
yeah, okay, good. I'm like Nanina a little bit. I have children in the background, so I'm trying to kind of block that off. But if I take this off as well, I'm kind of like Jim. I kind of come through that I'm mumbling a little bit. So I want to be as clear as I can. So this was the annual, I believe, spring meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lindsay. I attended last year with Liz, and I can see both of you on my screen. Unfortunately, I can only get 9 of you up at a time without swiping. So I did talk to Lindsay after the meeting, and I know I shared this with Liz last year. And when Liz and I reported on the meeting last April, I'm sure that I said this as well, so I'll repeat it. I get the feeling that when I'm in these meetings that our library system and library board aren't like the others in a lot of ways. And I say that because there seems to be always a friction or a tension amongst staff and some library boards or councils. So Liz or Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I won't correct you if you're wrong because I believe you. I know when I attend a conference, I can tell we are different with our relationship with council, staff, and our board members with respect to how we interact and how we operate as opposed to what they are in a lot of the other ones. And I just hear that through the negative comments made by some library personnel and also library people that are there. I don't want to say people, but library representatives that are there representing boards when they make comments about how their board operates. So you're absolutely right. We are different. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just continue on. So a lot of discussion on municipal and board relationships with staff. There was a lot of stressing, though, that we all need to work together and work as team members on it. And of course, everything on the meeting was with COVID and how every system's dealing with that and, dealing with the pandemic right now. And then, of course, going forward, what it's going to look like post COVID. a lot of discussion on preparing now, of course, which Lindsay and Liz, you've done an excellent job of, as the warden just said, of dealing with it now. And of course, you're preparing for going forward. The discussion too, which I don't know who wants to answer this, maybe Bill can jump into. Are we unique in that we have the ability to tap into HR and IT and legal? And I mean that by staff, because it sounds to me like many of these systems in Southwestern Ontario that aren't able to do that. So I'm just kind of confused on that. Are we unique?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, but I'll check with my colleagues. I can't.
Okay.
I know that, well, I mean, there's lots of different models for everything out there, but like if you take health units, for example, there's an example where some of them are within the government structure and they're using, like they're part of a region, for example, and using all those resources. Very efficient system. You just then have it all shared. I imagine there's the same thing for library boards out there, especially in larger systems. Lindsay, do you have a comment on this?
Yeah, I think that, we're pretty consistent with other county systems. And then the difference comes in those larger systems. So like London, they would have their own services, their own support in-house, but it's a lot of the small, maybe, standalone libraries who have very limited contact, I think, with their town structure. And they may go once a year just for budget kind of thing. And then they're left hanging a bit, I think, in a situation like this when HR issues become more complicated and payroll issues maybe become more complicated. But I think that, we're lucky that way, but it is, it seems
we're the right size for it, right? Where we can, and a lot of people think that there's specialties where, you need an HR person that's just for libraries or you need an accounting person that's just for a service. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's probably better that people get a wide variety of experience and it offers better answers, I think, in the long run. But yeah, so I don't know if we're that different from county systems. We definitely aren't different from regional systems. It would just be like those big city ones, I imagine.
Okay, thank you very much. So just talking about the programming and of course, I think every library in the system are using their 3D printers right now for PPE. I know we're doing something, Lindsay, or at least we were doing something for the mask, correct?
We've still been experimenting, unfortunately, because the filament that we were sent doesn't work well with our machine. So it's still something that we're working on. But.
Yeah, huge issue, of course, with rural areas with the lack of connectivity for meetings or programming, and big discussion, of course, on the virtual board meetings and going in camera and that type of thing. I would say that, and Lindsay, you and I talked about this, two of the biggest concerns are staff laying off in the community, or I guess in the region. And they're also really concerned how their owners are affected with layoffs. That was a huge, big issue. They did discuss, of course, the importance and the possibility of coordinating with school boards to augment learning. Really, and Jim, I know you had asked earlier about what's going to happen once the amalgamation takes place with the Northern and Southwestern Ontario system. As far as I know, there will be no changes in relation to your appointment of a SOLDIS member. How's that? Has anybody got any questions on any of that? I hope it was 8 weeks ago, so.
At least you can read your own writing.
I am, and I took down lots of notes, so.
Any questions in respect to that for Mary Gay? If not, then I look for our bylaw to confirm proceedings in the Middlesex County Library Board on May 26th. The bylaw, our confirmatory bylaw. I look for motion for first and second reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mary Gay, second by Councilor Brad Richards. All in favor? Carried. And then I left the third and final reading of the bylaw. Motion for third and final reading. Moved by Ruth, second by Mary Gay. All in favor? That's carried. No other business. I look for a motion to adjourn. I didn't think I stuttered. Moved by Ruth, second by Mary Gay. All in favor? It's carried. Once again, thank you very much and appreciate it. And Lindsay, especially, thank you very much for getting the notes ready and to help me get through this virtual reality. So thanks a lot. Take care. Good to see you, Bill. Been a while.
Nice to see you, sir.
Oh, watch your face smiling out. Take care.
Yep. I thought I saw you last Thursday. I thought you were having a drink.